The Full Scale Outdoors podcast intro, take 1123. Good God, I cannot get this thing down to save my life right now. I'm not sure what my problem is. It's just too busy around here, I think. This weekend, the 11th, we got the Minnesota fishing opener going. I'm trying to get mentally and physically prepared for that. Mother's Day is Sunday. Like, whoever had that brilliant idea to put Mother's Day and the fishing opener in the same weekend, not smart. Unless, of course, you're a divorce lawyer, and then probably was an ingenious move, and I tip my hat to you, sir. So there's that. Anyways, we're going to roll with it. I got a quick announcement. Coming up this Tuesday, the 14th, I'm going to be on the SmackDown Outdoors podcast live. We're going to go Facebook Live on that. So that'll be a first for me. So that'll be kind of fun. I won't be able to do 8,000 takes like I'm doing on this one. It's like what it's going to be is what it's going to be. So if you just listened to the last episode, I had Doug Glennervine, the host of the SmackDown Outdoors podcast, on my podcast. So now I'm going to do his. So I'm looking forward to that. So set your clocks and calendars for this upcoming Tuesday the 14th. And we're going to go Facebook Live. I'm looking forward to that. So log on to that. If you haven't already followed SmackDown Outdoor Podcast, go and do that on social media. Get that out of the way. And be safe out in the lakes if you're doing the opener here in Minnesota or wherever you're taking to the woods and water. Be safe out there and take some pictures. Share them to our Facebook page. I'd appreciate it. So let's get to this one. This one is a foraging. This is our very first all foraging podcast. What is foraging? You might not know. Well, it's going out there and collecting wild greens and mushroom hunting. That kind of all falls under that umbrella. So my guest today is Mike from Forest to Fork, or he is also known as the Gentleman Forager. So if you go on Facebook and all his social media, look those things up. He has a lot of good information on there. And we sit down and we talk. This one's kind of a quick one. He didn't have a ton of time, but he was gracious enough to carve out a little chunk of his day. So we did sit down and talk about mushrooms and other things to forage. So without much more, because I'm terrible at this apparently today, let's just do it. This is the Full Scale Outdoors Podcast.
Oh, here we go, boys.
Go.
Ooh, I love that sound. This is a good one. Doesn't really feel like spring right now.
No, it doesn't.
It's not. It could be
But
a
it
little
sure
warmer.
beats winter.
Yeah, well, it was snowing in Michigan today. I saw, like a lot,
Is that right?
like thunder snow. I'm not jealous, not even a little bit. However, I am leaving for a trip to Boston, on the East Coast, here
That'll be
tomorrow,
good.
actually.
Although I don't know that their weather's probably any different than ours.
No,
is
in
it?
fact, it usually follows, and I looked at the weather, and it's supposed to rain for like the first 4 days over there.
Of
So
course.
pretty much what we're getting here,
Right.
I just get to follow it across
Right.
the country.
Just get to
and
spend more time in
and
a
do it over
cigar
there.
tube in the air first.
Right, yeah. So if you know any Appalachian Mountain morel tips.
I have not been out there. That's not an area
I know
that I've
it's
been
different
to.
wherever you go, because like up here, I mean, as you know, the general rule of thumb is dead elms.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's other places they'll grow too, but we're talking about morels. I just jump into these things if you haven't
Yeah,
noticed.
I just figured that out.
Yeah, we're talking. But it's like I was in Iowa driving around, and there's just not as many elms down there.
Right.
And I guess from what I've heard, it's more the sycamore trees down there.
Yeah, or cottonwood.
Cottonwoods.
Ash can sometimes produce. I mean, I think you're right when you said it's mostly elm, at least if you're in the lower half of Minnesota.
Right.
And that's usually what I talk about in classes is, can you find morels somewhere else? Well, sure you can.
Of course you can.
But if you're going to go fishing, I'm going to play the odds doing that too, right?
Right.
I want to go where the most fish are, not where there
and
might
even
be a
if you're,
couple.
if you're looking for walleyes, you're going to go to a lake that's known to have a shit ton of them, or are
Right.
you going to go to a lake that,
Yeah.
I knew a guy that caught one once 5 years ago.
There's
Yeah,
actually
you're
a
gonna go.
surprising number, maybe because I was a fanatic about fishing before I spent so much time
Sure.
with the mushrooms. But yeah, it's very much like that, like, where you choose to go, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Could I go way back in that bay over there and catch a big northern? Well, maybe. But I've been back there, and it's 2 feet deep, and it's choked with weeds, and I should probably spend my time somewhere more fruitful.
Yeah.
Same thing with mushrooms as you're
Sure.
scanning around looking at the woods and where you should go.
Appreciate you coming on. I
Sure.
really wanted to get a foraging episode on. It's a big part of, like, who I am. I forage a lot. All week long I've been mixing in some nettles with my scrambled eggs.
Nice.
I love it. I mean, it's a great way to get, like, and I'm not a super health nut. I just like it because I just like the idea of being able to go out and procure my own foods right in my backyard. And it's since I started going down the rabbit hole that is, like, foraging, there's a website I think out there called eattheweeds.com, and I tell people that all the time, to eat the weeds. I mean, everything almost everything you pull out of your garden is edible and probably more nutritious.
Somebody used to eat that.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
And then, so you tell people that, and they just look at you like you're an alien, like you're speaking. They're like, I'm not gonna eat whatever it is I'm telling them to eat. I'm like, why not? Like, if they don't buy it from a store, they don't trust it.
Well, and it's funny too when people try things like that for the first time, and the expression always cracks me up because a lot of times they're like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
like that never entered their mind that it might actually be good.
Well, for me, for, like, the nettles, it's like, well, for one, it's like the first time somebody tells you that you can eat nettles, you're like, the things that I brush up against when I'm trout fishing and then I'm itching for the next hour, those things, you want me to put those in my mouth? Okay, sure. All right, crackpot. But no, those are great because if somebody is more health conscious and they just want, like, something that's super healthy, like I looked it up the other day, and they have almost half your daily allowance of fiber in a serving, which I think was like 100 milligrams or something like that with a serving size. However many leaves that is, I have no idea. But it seemed like a lot, and you get an iron, a non-meat form of iron out of them, and like vitamin K and just a bunch of shit.
I think I think that's one of the things that to me is most interesting about the business I'm in is what you said, right? That's how I was. I'm not the healthiest eater in the world for my life.
Yeah.
In fact, most of my life, I'm eating too much fast food, and it wouldn't be a big deal to polish off a frozen pizza by myself.
Sure, I still do.
Big steak on Friday. I'm finding the best butcher in town and getting that ridiculously large T-bone or whatever. But when you realize, hey, what if I didn't have to, like, eat bad food? What if it was really tasty food and just as, like, a side bonus, it happens to be really healthy,
and it also is good for you.
And it's good, and then on top of it, just the idea of being out in the woods, spending time with nature, and when you top that on, to me, it's become super easy for your average person. To do without feeling like they have to join a special club of tree huggers. Or,
right, and that kind of is the what would you call it? The air of it, or the predisposed notion. If you tell somebody you're a forager, you're a granola eating hippie. And,
damn hippies!
I about couldn't be further from the truth to that. I'm out there fishing.
Although I do love our hippies.
I do love hippies. There's a place at the table for everybody.
Right.
I'm not putting them down. It's funny how it's just weird how you get it. But if somebody wants, like, you have nettles growing in your backyard, and you don't feel that adventurous, I'm telling you, if you put those things, saute them in butter, and just put them, and then throw your eggs in there and scramble them up, you won't even taste them. But you're getting all the benefits of eating them. You're going to get all the fiber. You're going to get all those vitamins and everything else. I'm eating them. Honestly, cannot taste that there's anything other than eggs in my scrambled eggs.
At most, it would look like you're eating some spinach with your eggs.
That's pretty much what it is. But I'll put them on salads too.
Or nettle soup is actually quite delicious.
I haven't done that, but I have done. Actually, I probably have done that a few times. I've made like a stew or a soup. I'll just whatever's growing at the time.
Pesto,
I'll just throw them in there because again, they kind of just become part of the dish. You can't really single them out, but then you're getting all the health benefits of it. But I guess we could take a step back so people know what the hell we're talking about. I'm here with, I never actually caught your actual name.
Mike Kempenich.
Mike Kempenich.
Yeah.
With Gentleman Forager. And we talked before we started recording that I was following you when you had the Minnesota Mushroom Forum.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you changed that. So give people kind of the backstory of how that
Well,
all started.
yeah.
How did Minnesota Mushroom Forum get off the ground?
So about, almost 10 years now, I had my favorite line, because it's true, was I had a boss who gave me an opportunity to look for a new opportunity.
Got fired.
I got fired, right. Excuse me. And, I was kind of at the prime earning years of my career path. And originally I thought, not a huge deal. I'd been a contractor for a lot of years, so being in between for a few weeks wasn't scary to me. But after about a year, and our economy was kind of taking a tank back then, and I found myself still out of work, it was like, what the hell am I going to do? And I was spending a lot of time in the woods. And I kept having this reoccurring thought, like, well, why can't I buy chanterelles in a store or morels in it? Well, once in a while you'd see morels, but certainly something like chanterelles or maitake or porcini or, all these other delicious wild mushrooms in particular, that weren't available. And I just, I just started researching, who sold them, and there just, there really wasn't much out there. So I thought, hey, I've got all this time. I'm gonna hop and do some self-study and figure out not how I can pick them, because we live in Minnesota, but what if I could grow these wild mushrooms? And so I spent a couple of years in very deep self-study and figuring out the biology of fungi, and was able eventually to convince a friend of mine to give up his basement to make a little lab, and his garage to make a little makeshift fruiting chamber. And we kind of did a proof of concept and produced some mushrooms, and that got the attention of some investors. And when, we ended up building a large facility for production. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was really super fun and super rewarding and exciting. And, it was everything I hoped it would be. But then I turned around and I was like, God, it's been like over 2 years and I haven't had a single day off, because growing mushrooms is like being a dairy farmer. They don't stop growing.
Yeah.
And so then it kind of morphed into, hey, how do I, spend more time in the field? Maybe I teach mushroom identification. And I began teaching the certification classes for the U of M and UW, and doing more.
Meaning to take, and I just haven't got around to it.
Well, you'll like this even more. Now we give them at Morrissey's Irish Pub.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have like mushroom tasty tidbits that we're studying. We eat dishes containing those mushrooms, and we can have a cold beverage of choice. And it's a little more approachable.
And we're recording at outside at Bunkers here in Minneapolis, just in case you hear some street noises or other talking.
The fabulous Bunkers Music Bar and Grill.
Yes, I love this place. I haven't been here in a long time, though. We used to watch Mick Sterling back here in the
It's
day.
affectionately known as my downtown office.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Like, you just hang out here a lot.
Yes.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so we just sort of morphed into more of being out with people and pulling the chefs into that, because of course our wholesale business does works with pretty much every chef in town, and the music component became obvious. Hey, if we're going to have a fun party in the woods and some great food, we should probably have a couple bands come up too, and then most recently our first retail store, Forest to Fork, which is in the Keg and Case Market over in St. Paul, the old Schmidt Brewery.
Oh, yeah.
And super excited about that.
Is that a restaurant? It's just a store where you can go buy mushrooms?
Yeah, well, Forest to Fork is the first wild food grocer in America.
Okay.
And in addition to that,
Let's
we
check
have
that out.
we have a 14-foot tall glass fruiting chamber where we're cultivating in front
Oh,
of
cool.
you.
People can see the stuff growing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Right.
That's
So
pretty neat.
it's
So
a
you
really-
posted something on Facebook the other day. It was like, can you guess what this was? And then you posted the answer.
Right.
Either, was it today or yesterday? I don't remember. What was the answer?
It was Foliota
It
adisposa.
was folio. Okay, I should have said that. I think I'm like, that looks like, and like, that's edible?
Sure, absolutely. Some species of Foliota.
Okay, because I
not
know
all.
I find those a lot late
it's
summer, early fall.
It's a common mushroom in Minnesota. The species that you typically would find here are not edible.
Yeah, okay, that's why I asked. I'm like, okay, I know that what that looks
Have I
like.
been passing
and
up on all
I've
these?
been under, yeah, and that's kind of how I got into foraging. I really started with, and I tell people the gateway drug. Morels are the gateway drug.
Absolutely.
People are, they're not a stranger to it. Almost everybody knows somebody that hunts for morels, or they've been gifted morels before and they really like them and they know how expensive they are to buy, and it's not strange to them to hear somebody eating this wild mushroom. So I always thought that it was like the only wild mushroom that you could safely eat.
Most people do.
Which is probably, the safe bet. But then I read an article so I got into that, and I got to the point where I could find morels pretty good on you kind of start developing a sixth sense for it, where to look and where not, spots to just pass over. Because the first time I did it, I just went to a park and I literally just walked around the woods staring at the ground, not looking for trees, not just
hoping one would jump out.
Yeah, I had no idea. I'm just like, okay, I know they grow in here somewhere, and yeah, of course I didn't find any. But then I read an article in Outdoor News about chanterelles. It was midsummer, and the picture of it was like, I was like, wait a minute, there's another a wild mushroom I can harvest. I look at the picture, I'm like, I know where some are growing right now. Just because in my, I was scouting for deer or just going through a walk in the woods or whatever I was doing. And I'm always the kind of person, like, no matter what I'm doing, I'm basically scouting for the upcoming or any upcoming season, whether it's a hunting season or a fishing season, or, I'm just driving down the freeway. I'll be like, ooh, that swamp looks ducky. I have to remember that in October. And like, ooh, that farmer, he's got small grains in his field. I might have to knock on that door later. And, that looks like a good strip of deer woods. Or now it's like, ooh, look at all those dead elms. I have to check those come spring. So I'm always doing that. And I always kind of have. So it's like I just take note of things. I'm like, oh, those are pretty yellow mushrooms. I didn't know what they were, but I'm like, oh, they're pretty cool looking, And then that's just in the back of my mind. And then all of a sudden this article pops out, and I'm like, I know where those are.
I know where
and I can eat those. So I go and I grab them, and then I didn't end up eating those because, as most mushroom people, if you can't 100% identify it, you shouldn't eat it. And so there was just enough doubt. I'm like, well, I think it smells like apricot. Does it smell like apricot to you? Like, kind of, maybe. You're like, oh, I don't know. And then, sure enough, then I'm like, yeah, these are definitely it. So then I started eating them, and they're awesome. They're actually my wife's favorite. She loves chanterelles.
Yeah, people are really surprised to find that they have a fruity aroma and flavor.
They are super delicious. And man, they'll make a dish look good just because they do have that
beautiful
color. Yeah, they're absolutely gorgeous. And they are so unlike morels in that this is not a scavenger hunt for these things. Like, oh, there's one 50 yards over there. I can see a bunch of them. You don't do that with morels. Those things are, hiding under every leaf, and they just look like bark. And they're got to train your eyes to it.
That's nice to have one that actually, stands out in the woods.
Yeah, and so then that was like I creaked the door open with the chanterelles, and then I went down the rabbit hole. Then it was like, these different boletes and, the black trumpets, and then there's chicken in the woods, and, I was like, and there's just kept popping up into my world, all these demos. Like, there's a whole world of things you can eat out here.
For sure.
Like, and then it started getting into the greens, and to this day, I think the biggest lie that was ever told to me was that you can't eat milkweed. Like, the reason monarch butterflies are so brightly colored is because they eat this bitter plant, and that makes them taste like shit to would-be predators, and maybe that's true. But when you blanch some young milkweed shoots and you put butter and a little bit of salt on some milkweed shoots, holy shit, are they tasty. Yeah. Man, they're good. Right. They're like green beans and asparagus mixed together, kind of, sort of. Right. More green bean than asparagus, but they're good. But anyways, I'm rambling.
Or the
stealing
young
your
seed
thunder.
pods.
Yep. Well, that's the cool thing about milkweed is that you harvest them responsibly. You don't want to decimate an entire field, but yeah, you take some shoots and when they're young, and then as the seed pods start to form, or the flower heads first.
Yeah.
So the green flower heads before they turn into flower heads, you can eat those, pluck them off, cook them the same way you would the shoots. The flowers you can just eat right off the plant, throw them in a salad if you want, or I usually just pick a few while I'm out and about and just eat them, and they taste like flowers. I mean, they taste like they smell.
Flowery.
Really. Yeah, these are flowery. And then, and then the seed pods form and the young seed pods. So I haven't done the thing where you actually like open them up and you can kind of. Have you done that where you actually eat like the seeds inside before have fully hardened?
Yeah.
It's kind of almost like a pasta kind of.
Yeah, before they go to silk.
Yeah. I haven't done that. How is that? You've done that?
Yeah, they're very tasty.
Same way.
I mean, there's certain plants that I think are best prepared by a really fantastic chef.
Probably all of them.
Right? But to your earlier point, there's tons of wild greens out there that are really delicious, frankly, if you just pick them in the field and put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
There's what am I thinking of here? Watercress is very prevalent in Minnesota, especially if you're living in parts that have trout stream kind of streams, very cold water.
Yep.
There's a lot of invasive species in Minnesota, like wild mustard greens that are
They're everywhere.
We don't want them here, so please eat them.
Yeah, don't feel bad about over harvesting those.
Don't transport them.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I have Japanese knotweed growing on the side of my house.
Yeah,
I did not put them there.
That's a bad
They
thing
were
to
there.
have by your house too, by the way.
Yeah, I know they grow into
bust up
everything.
your concrete.
Yeah,
right.
they are very aggressive, but they're also very delicious.
They are. They're
And you snap those things off and just eat. I just eat them.
Yeah.
It's like if this makes any sense, they're a greener tasting rhubarb. If green can be a taste, I don't know if green
I know
can
what
be a
you're saying
taste.
because I've eaten them, but right.
Yeah, I don't know how green's a taste or a flavor, but that's what comes to mind when I try to describe the flavor. I have made like a crisp out of them, like a dessert.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It turned out okay, but it definitely needed some more sugar. I mean, needed some more something. So like if you like some strawberries, like if you made a strawberry instead of rhubarb, but a strawberry knotweed crisp, that would have worked out. Just a little bit more tang.
They
or
make a good
sweet
jam, actually.
I bet they would. I bet it would. That I haven't dipped into jam making, but I do tap maple trees for syrup. So it's like this all leads right in.
Exactly.
One thing leads the next.
It's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, it's like you can do all this myself, and I'm like, wow, why can't I do this myself? And the next thing you know, you don't have time for anything else because all you're doing is finding ways to get food for, well, quote unquote free, but never free.
Nothing's free.
It's
Right?
never free. It takes gas to get to here. You need this to do that, and it's never free. But that's kind of how I got into it. So I'll take it back to, because this is what I just go on rabbit holes all the time. But so let's get back to, you had the Mushroom Forum, and then you started the that store. Now you have Forest to Fork. But in between there, then you kind of changed the name over to Gentleman Forager.
Right. And Gentleman Forager still exists. That's our wholesale division. And so, we provide a plethora of wild food products year-round to all the restaurants here in town. So in Minnesota, it's essentially from May until the end of October. The great part is the Pacific Northwest season is almost the exact opposite of ours. So about the time our season starts winding up.
Oh, is that right?
We've got pickers out west that are picking for us.
Nice.
And
so chanterelles in the Pacific Northwest grow when?
Well, Shants in the Pacific Northwest would come later than ours, actually, or kind of in sync with ours, not terribly different. But it extends our season on either side, so that's good. Like,
sure.
Some will come before ours, and they'll run probably after ours a little bit. But when November hits, I can probably start finding yellowfoot and hedgehogs from out the Pacific Northwest, and so there's not really an interruption of they're always changing because the seasons are changing, and then black truffles start and white truffles start and black trumpets and porcini and matsutake, and so there's always something exciting around the next corner.
Yeah, for sure. And porcinis, so like nobody really uses those terms unless you're a chef. Or you're buying them in a store. I mean, it's
we're trying to change
hunters.
that.
Oh, you want to go to
right? Like
porcini?
People should know porcini because it's that good. Maitake's great. It grows here in Minnesota. Matsutake.
I feel like with porcini, you got it's a porcini.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's probably the second most popular mushroom in the world. If you say porcini anywhere in Europe, everybody would know.
They'll know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah,
we just need to catch up a little bit.
Yeah. The Kings.
Yeah,
they're good. They're really good. But the bleats are the hard ones. So as I started going down the rabbit hole, then you buy a book, and then you buy this book and that book, and I got that big-ass book, Mushrooms Demystified, which is a great book. I mean, it's somewhat of a misleading title because you're like, oh, Mushrooms Demystified. They're going to make this super easy. This thing is a phone book, man. This thing is huge. It doesn't read like a novel. It's basically like a road map. So you go out in the woods and you find a mushroom, and then you just go start checking off characteristics.
Right. If this, then that.
Yep. If this, turn to this page. If
Right.
this, then that, and this, and that. And next thing you know, like, it might be this. If it gets to the point where I got to do a spore print, I'm out. I like eating wild mushrooms, but that's where I draw the line. I don't need it that bad. I don't need it that. If it's between a delicious meal and an upset stomach, and
Well,
I have to wait 4 hours or whatever it is for a good sport print, no, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna go with the one. There's plenty of them out there that are easy to recognize.
I tend to agree with you.
And that's why morels are great, and I think people are drawn to them. One, for us, for everybody, it comes in the spring. So we're all sick and tired of winter.
Absolutely.
Just want to, you got cabin fever. You just want to get out there and get something. So that's when they grow.
Right.
So that's nice. They don't really have any lookalikes. There is the false morel, but if you ask me, I don't think it looks anything like a real morel.
There's part of my class at some point I'm showing various photos of what are called false morels. I'm making the quotation signs.
Air quotes.
And I always have a slide then that says, how many of you recognize these as a morel? And the following slide is, I'm going to have to ask you to please leave the class. Because they really, other than Verpa is an unrelated species that I can imagine somebody who's new to morels could potentially mistake.
Might mess it up.
But the rest of them, Gyromitra and the more, the other sort of common false morels, I mean, they really don't look like a morel.
And I think I've only really found one or two of them ever. They don't really grow in the same time.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
they?
Yeah, they
Do
grow
they?
very
Okay.
much the same time. Typically, Gyromitra comes slightly, and Verpa as well, comes slightly before, a few days or a week before maybe.
Oh, I thought
But
maybe
they'll
they're
run
even
through
later,
the season.
So that shows how much
Yeah.
I know. But yeah, I've only ever seen a couple of them.
And it depends on the region. I mean, around the cities here, if you've spent most of your time around town or parts south, you probably don't come upon very much Gyromitra. But if you were up in northern Minnesota, you'd probably come upon quite a bit of it.
No, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't found them. I don't know. But there's other ones that in the spring, the dryad saddles,
Pheasant backs. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And those are good if you get them young enough.
Yeah.
And they don't.
That's the key to those. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they turn into belt leather
Yeah,
if you
and they get bitter.
harvest them too late.
Right. Yeah. You want nice, fist-sized ones, not
I
dinner-plate-sized
didn't develop it, but what I do in the field, I just use a fingernail test. If my fingernail can easily puncture that top skin, they're good to go.
I think that's probably a pretty decent test.
It works.
Yeah.
It works for me because if it doesn't, I don't
Yeah.
care what you do to that thing. You ain't eating it.
Sous
You might
vide.
be able to scrape off the flesh of the underside of it, but that top skin.
But see there again, if I'm
Punch
so
some-
desperate
Yeah,
to
yeah,
eat,
yeah. It's, yeah.
whatever it is,
My
I'll-
brother-in-law will still take them. He'll actually he'll powder them. He'll grind them up into a powder, the old ones, and just use it in a mushroom stock. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but why?
I got all these other good ones I'm going to use.
It's just
Right.
why?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Just because you can, I guess.
That's a big thing. It's whether it's people that eat mushrooms that they shouldn't be eating because they can't positively identify them, which is
I'm just.
scarily more common than you might
It's
think.
crazy.
Or making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I see a lot of people that try and consume a mushroom that's well past prime,
Yeah.
and of course they end up not liking the mushroom.
Right, and then they're.
And then they don't,
Yeah.
they're wondering why everybody raves about this mushroom. It's
Yeah.
like, well, if you ate a rotten banana,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
not going to
why don't
taste
you
the
take
same
a-
as a fresh one.
Catch a walleye and let that thing sit on your
Right.
the dash of your truck
Right. There
for
you
a
go.
week, and then clean it and see how good that walleye
Absolutely.
tastes.
Yeah.
I don't
Same
care how
principle.
clean and cold water you took it out of it.
Right.
It's going to taste like ass.
Exactly.
For sure. So we'll try to drum. I know the people that are out there that are into it, are gonna. They already know what to do. But if anybody that's listening to this is curious, I mean, well, you have a supercomputer in your pocket right now. You live in the golden age. I mean, you don't even need to pick up a book anymore. You can just go, what does
kinda
a
true.
morel look like? And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's what a morel looks
Right.
like. I mean, I've used my phone. If I find a mushroom that I'm not familiar with, I'll just look at the characteristics. I'll be like, orange cap, guild, mushroom, Minnesota, August,
Right.
and then I gotta,
Got a starting
I'll
point
do
anyway.
images. I'll go to I won't do whole web. I'll just do the
Yeah,
image search
right.
and then just go, oh, there it is right there. Click on that, and then that'll link me to some website that'll
Right.
tell me what it is. And then I can just Google is whatever the scientific name is, it edible? And then most times it's not. You're like, that one's off the list.
Right.
Take a picture of it and move on. Because mushrooms are cool, man. I mean, they're just down to like the biology of it is awesome. You know,
It's an enormous part of the world we live in that most people never learn about or never realize how impactful it is.
Play a huge role in the environment, like an absolutely huge role. I mean, there's even talk now that it might help us with pollution, and there's
microremediation.
like even can break down, like nuclear waste and all sorts of stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
They kind of came in. But plants were first, and then I think mushrooms branched off of that, and then animals, or did he?
Well,
yeah,
there's a fair amount of recent debate over that. Actually.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Ooh, some mushroom controversy.
Mushroom controversy. I mean, it was definitely been taught for a very long time. Certainly, when I went to school, that plants came first. But there's if you check out something called a prototaxite. It's a big towering, about 25 feet tall and probably 4 feet around, which they originally thought was a plant, one of the earliest forms of a plant. And I think about 2 years ago, they positively identified that it actually was a fungus, that this was a 25-foot tall,
shaking it up,
4 foot
that's
around
some
fungus.
Alice in Wonderland
shit
right there.
That's a meal, right? Big fungus steaks. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's still a bit of a toss-up about when exactly they entered the timeline. And
it was a long effing time ago.
I mean, it's certainly amongst the top 2 earliest life forms.
But I like how they're like the in-between. They're not all plant and they're not all animal. They kind of share characteristics of both. I mean, they're their own
Actually,
thing.
they're not really like plants at all.
Well, some do. Maybe I'm talking out my ass here, but I thought, well, I probably am, and it's not the first time, won't be the last.
Not to call you out.
No, please, absolutely do. This is a learning moment.
Fungi
a teaching moment.
Are really closely related to the human animal, or animals in general, right?
But there's some mushrooms that will do like a photosynthesis type of thing.
No, I mean, it's really a defining characteristic of fungi, right? Is that they cannot perform photosynthesis.
Oh, okay. I thought
so mushrooms derive their nourishment, their energy from.
Yeah, I know most of them are that way, but I thought maybe I must have misheard something or misread something.
Yeah. No, they use metabolites that break down their food source and they absorb it just like people do, right? We eat food, goes in our body, we absorb nutrients, same thing. Only they're putting out some enzymes that sort of loosen up the food first, and then they consume it.
Well, they're plant-like in that they're not mobile.
They are not mobile. That is true.
So there, take that.
But if you know anybody who has like a fungus, a nail fungus or any kind of a fungal infection, the reason that they can never get rid of it is because it's so closely related to the human organisms that anything that would kill the fungal organism would also kill our own body cells. So it's very hard to ever, almost impossible to ever kill a fungal infection. You can treat it.
Well, with another fungus,
yeah,
penicillin.
well, maybe, right? Yeah, right. But yeah, they're really
mushroom war going on in your body.
I mean, that's why they have their own kingdom, right? There's plants and fungi.
Yeah. Then there's cordyceps. They're freaky.
Even more freaky, right?
Yeah, they're like super freaky. They take over bugs, and the bugs will climb up something.
They take over
They don't want to climb up something. They make somehow. I'm like, this is like alien shit.
It's hard to believe until you see it.
Yeah, I mean, they take over the brain. And, let's just say an ant climbs up onto a stick, latches onto said stick, dies, and then the mushroom takes over.
Yeah, certain species of the
sprouts the fruit,
tell it different things.
And then, poof, there goes the spores, and start all over again. Like, that's just wild.
Yeah.
Just wild. And then you got mushrooms that are parasitic. You got mushrooms that are symbiotic. I mean, and then what would you call the ones that like just off of just straight decaying stuff? What's the
Those are called
classification?
saprophytes.
That's what it was. These are all big names.
Yeah.
And when I read them, I'm like, oh yeah, that word. But then, if I'm gonna
you read it enough and it sticks.
Yeah. Well, apparently I haven't read it enough yet. But saprophytes. That's right. So that's morels would be more of the. They're not really a parasitic, but they start to fruit when they're. Are they?
No,
because they have a relationship with trees.
Yeah,
and the root system.
I mean, every plant on Earth, about 90% of all plants have a mycorrhizal relationship with fungi. That's how you would describe what you're asking. So a morel, a chanterelle, a porcini, a lot of mushrooms are mycorrhizal in nature. So the mycelium of that mushroom, the organism of the mushroom, is actually intertwined with the roots of the tree. And it relies upon the tree to deliver certain nutrients to it that it can't metabolize on its own. Mostly sugars in the case of the mushroom is getting from the tree, but the tree can get other things from the mushroom, from the mycelium sort of acting as a broader broadcast net of the root system. So it can take up things like phosphorus to give to the tree that the tree can't metabolize on its own, and it really enhances their ability to uptake.
So that's symbiotic. That's more of
it's not. I mean, it is for the purposes of our discussion.
Sure.
I mean, technically, it's not completely symbiotic.
Right. They're helping each other out.
Right.
I mean, well, that's not that much different than different plants help out different plants. You know, if let's just say like burdock, that's going to have a really long taproot that's going to pull up, nitrogen or something from way down deep that a shallower root system plant wouldn't get, and so it's bringing up nutrients. It's not doing it out of the kindness. It's like, this.
Yes, they're both getting something.
Yeah, they're both getting something out of it, but they're all working in harmony, if you will. But not all mushrooms work in harmony. Some actually attack and kill trees.
Yeah, I mean, there are some mycorrhizal mushrooms that are mycorrhizal, but they actually have sinister plans for that tree, right? Maitake would
even
be a good
mushrooms
example
can be
of that.
assholes.
It's not. I guess maitake is not mycorrhizal, but maitake will introduce brown rot to the tree. So anytime you find maitake growing around an oak, for instance,
that oak is not long for this world.
SOL. Yes, it's a matter of a few years.
But is it more? Is that the symptom, or is that the cause? Some people call these hen of the woods.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What did I say?
You said the maitake.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you said the right thing. I just like throw out the common terms.
No, you're totally correct for doing that.
Just not everybody's as mushroom dorked out as we are.
Yeah, I forget that sometimes. I apologize. No, it actually introduces it to the tree. Like that's
okay.
Or a honey mushroom.
Honey mushrooms are.
They'll wreak havoc upon huge expanses of trees. And
I had them. The one year I found them in my, I wouldn't call it my yard, but the trees next to my house, my property. I was like, ooh, honey mushrooms. Damn, honey mushrooms.
That's not good. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Damn it.
Yeah, they're tasty.
And then they are good. They are really good. That was one I was like, that's a cool. And I didn't really know what they were until I found them. I was like, that's a cool looking mushroom. I looked them up. I'm like, ooh, honeys. I think you can eat those. And sure enough.
Yeah.
So, hey, at least I got something out of it. I got a couple meals out of those oak trees dying. But then once the oak trees dies, now you can get some sulfur caps. Chicken of the woods. Then you can get those. So, and those are a great beginner mushroom. Again,
Absolutely.
You can spot those things
right?
from a mile away.
You can road hunt those. Right?
Yeah, you can. They're beautiful. A bright orange on top, look like a sunset, and then underneath it's yellow.
Pretty
pours.
unmistakable.
Like you can't fuck this one up. You're
and there's no toxic lookalikes.
No,
even if you were to somehow screw it up, you're not going to kill yourself.
No, and I say that's like the vegetarian chicken. I mean, it's nice to call it chicken of the woods because it does kind of have that flavor, but the texture, like even string off if you cook it right.
Well, that's really where it gets its name. It's the texture.
The texture more than the flavor.
Right.
But if you wanted to put that in like you could easily, some chicken bouillon or whatever, you could make a vegetarian chicken soup with those.
Huge
pretty
favorite
easy.
of vegetarians.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
it would be. So that's a summer, fall. Actually, they kind of grow almost any time.
Yeah, they will. Anytime from spring to fall. They're really reliant mostly on periods of heavy rain, high humidity. So if we get a week's worth
should head out right now.
Yeah, and warm.
Missed the warm part.
Right.
For sure, missed the warm part. Is not warm at all. But I can't say I've ever found any while morel hunting.
That's pretty early. Usually June.
Yeah, but you will start to see them in June. Yeah, and you can road hunt the hell out of those.
Yeah.
I've seen them growing in people's yards before.
I picked 140 pounds off of a single tree on a
Good
on one occasion.
Lord.
So it can be a bonanza.
Yeah. What's you freeze those?
You can actually. The water content of those mushrooms are not as high as some other mushrooms, so you can actually freeze that raw and end up with a fairly good
That's
result.
what I've done.
Yeah.
I've kind of cubed them up and then froze
Right.
them, and then I'll just put them in usually a soup or something.
Right.
They just saute them up or whatever, throw them right into the soup.
Yeah.
That's seems to be a
Yes,
good
make
way
sure
of
you
using
cook
them.
or you'll end up with a really upset stomach.
Oh yeah, are there any mushrooms out there that you can just eat?
No.
I didn't think so.
I mean, people eat, white button mushrooms on a salad maybe or something, and for 99% of the public, that's probably
It
fine
doesn't
because you're
even
just
taste
eating
good.
a couple. Right, I don't really think it tastes all that great either. But mushrooms contain chitin, which is the same compound that makes up a carapace, a shell from a lobster or a shrimp or a beetle.
Sure.
And we can't digest that, so heat mitigates that. So that's one thing. So if you're not cooking the mushroom and you consume it, and you consume a reasonable quantity of it, you're just going to be running to the bathroom fairly
Right.
soon. But beyond that, I mean, think of where they come from too. Like,
Yeah, they grow to shit.
I have seen some really horrifying things on mushrooms before that if you knew was on there, you'd probably want to cook it.
Did you hear the when Stamets was on the Rogan?
I
You
have to
episode?
confess, I personally have not listened to it, but I've certainly heard about
You've
it
heard
from
about
many
it?
people.
Yeah, so it was like this huge thing. Like, I can't talk about that. I'm like, what the hell? You can't talk about portobellos? Like, your life's in danger? This isn't making any sense. But yeah, that kind of was interesting too, where he's like, white button and portobellos are the same mushroom, pretty
White
much.
button,
And then what's the other
portobello,
one?
cremini.
Creminis. That's
are
what
all
I can
three
never.
the same
Again, I can
mushrooms.
never remember that one.
They're
Cremini.
just all at different stages of growth.
Sure.
Right.
And isn't like exposure to UV like portobellos?
No, just exposure to light, period.
or any light.
Yeah,
They
so,
get darker.
Right, the more light you get for any mushroom, basically, the
Okay.
darker color you're going to
Well,
get.
didn't know
A
that.
white oyster
They get a
mushroom.
tan.
Yeah, they do. I mean, a white oyster mushroom in Minnesota, if I grow it in open sunlight, will be a chocolate brown. Yeah.
Interesting. And they don't get to have a different name. They're not like you don't call them chocolate oysters.
No, well, it'd probably be good on the menu, right?
Yeah, right. It's gonna look good. Gotta come up with not chocolate maybe, but some other kind of.
We have to do that on occasion. I don't know if you know a mushroom that's the technical name for the mushroom is Enteloma arbortivum. The common
sounds
name,
delicious.
Yeah, right. The common name is even worse. It's aborted enteloma.
Oh, that's the shrimp of the woods.
Right. I don't know that the shrimp of the woods sounds that great either. It definitely sounds better than aborted entelomas.
Call them packing peanuts of the woods because that's what they look like.
We renamed them cloud mushrooms.
There
We're
you
going with
go.
that. It's
That's a
very
good one.
pleasant and
Yeah.
fluffy and right.
Cloud mushrooms. I can buy that. Yeah, they do. I found a crap ton of those one time. I mean, they were just carpeted.
Yeah, usually when you find them, there are huge numbers of them.
Yeah, but it's hard to like. It was hard for me to find like a good one because they break down really fast.
Yeah, well, I was just going to
They
say
were
that
filled
before you
with
said
bugs
it.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'd pick them like and it would almost fall apart in my hand. It was hard to get some.
There's a
worth
very
keeping.
fine sort of feel you get for the texture of it when you pick them and to determine what you're getting at. Yeah,
Yeah, it was-
and often they'll get very waterlogged.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
But yeah, so you got to get them when they're firm, but they're like a firm rubber ball.
Okay.
And once they get past that, you like I say, over picking thousands and thousands, you kind of develop a touch for it.
Sure. Know which ones.
Right.
Probably tell by looking at them. Some of them you can I
right.
can look. I'm like that one looks like if I breathed on it, it would fall apart.
Right,
We're gonna
which
pass
is a
that one.
great, easy test, right, for everybody. Like, just look at it and go, do I want to eat that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, if you have any doubt at all, if you're like, well,
And bugs like to eat mushrooms about as much as people.
they
like
do,
to
and
eat
deer
mushrooms.
and other animals,
Yeah.
and sure, yeah.
That's be the probably the most frustrating thing when you do find a porcini or a king bolete that
Yes.
it's almost always infested with some sort of larvae at first.
That's
I mean,
kinda
they
why-
get to it way before we ever do.
That deposit of larvae comes at primordia formation, so before that mushroom is even visible, that has been deposited.
So that's happening underneath the
right.
soil.
Well, it might
that's
even
just rude.
be barely,
Oh, it's just-
imperceptibly,
okay.
type thing. But and then when that larvae hatches, it starts consuming the mushroom from the stem up.
Stem up, yeah.
And so sometimes, if you just trim it up the stem until you don't see any more wormholes, you'll be good to go. But that's why a lot of people never find a porcini, frankly, because they're up and down so fast.
They
it's
do.
probably
They
48 hours.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
fast. And some of them get huge.
Yeah.
I stumbled on some going into the woods. I think I was bow hunting deer. It was actually pretty late. I mean, I'm doing it with my hands, but it was like dinner plate size. The cap, it was
they can be,
absolutely
some of them are really huge.
massive.
Yeah.
And the base of it, big bulbous base was,
Yeah.
like the end of a baseball
a
bat.
meal.
It was crazy. Yeah, except the bugs. I mean, there's no way you're
it's
going to
tough,
eat that
man.
thing.
And in Minnesota especially,
Unless you don't mind
the
a little
bugs
extra
are,
protein. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
They're just bugs.
If I don't see it, I'm okay.
You're an insectivore. Just
Right.
let her buck. Fry it up. You'll never know.
That's right.
It ain't going to hurt you. I mean, there's not like,
Extra flavor.
yeah, if it's even that. Extra protein.
And-
I don't
and
know if
extra
mushrooms
protein.
have much protein in them, but
Oh, it's a high source of protein.
if you get them with the bugs in it, you're going to really uptake.
Pound for pound, mushrooms have more protein than meat.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I never even looked at that in the protein. I can't say that I've actually looked up the nutrition value of a mushroom. I just like
They're incredibly healthy
because
for
they're
you.
delicious.
Yeah. Well, that's what we said earlier. It's like they're delicious, and that's primarily why I love them. But yeah, if you check out what you're getting out of for instance, consuming just a couple of shiitake mushrooms a week, have measurable impact on several areas of health.
Yeah. Well, my takis are really. Have a
Most
lot of
mushrooms
benefits,
have
aren't
health
they?
benefits to them. There was a study that just came out a couple of weeks ago. There was a 6-year study involving 2,000 elderly adults that consumed Hericium, lion's mane mushroom, and they found that the people who consume this mushroom on a weekly basis, 50% less cognitive decline.
I better start farming those things because I need that.
And think about that, 50%.
I need that a lot.
I mean, that's no small.
No, that's huge, and
Yeah.
I've actually heard that about lion's mane, which is one of my favorites. To
which
find.
we're growing in our chamber this very
I
moment.
s-
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
I need to get that going. Are they hard to grow?
They're not the easiest.
No.
Yeah.
So what they need just a controlled temperature and humidity. Is that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean
a-
the factors are generally humidity, CO2 level, temperature are the three most important.
So I can't just throw them on my countertop.
That's
hope for good-
actually that brings up a funny story. This time of the year, in the forums, there's all everybody's chiming in about all the things they've heard about mushrooms, and I always kind of enjoy reading that. And somebody the other day had a post, and it was like a plastic bag with wood shavings in it, and this poor woman was being completely sincere when she asked everybody in the group, "Hey, I just bought these morel seeds," and the instructions say you mix it with water and you pour this in the area you want your morels, and she was just asking for little tips and pointers.
Yeah.
And I couldn't resist. I normally don't tease people at all because I've been there, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I couldn't resist saying, please contact me. I have some magic beans. So, yeah, there's a lot of sort of wide tail kind of things.
Yeah, the
out
thing
there.
with morels is they kind of just do their own thing. They're hard to kind of make grow. I mean,
Yeah, they're the holy grail of cultivation.
yeah, they don't.
Well,
wanna,
any mycorrhizal
They don't want to
mushroom.
be tamed.
Right.
It seems.
Right.
Are there any successful morel farms out there?
Again, I'm making air quotes.
Sure.
They farm them in China right now, but it's not in a controlled environment. It's outdoors, and what they've done is sort of figured out how to encourage mycelium to form, but they're still relying upon the outside
Sure.
temperatures and
Big-
rain
big
and
if,
all of the other
yeah.
factors, and there's only the particular species of morel that they're growing is not. I've had them, I've eaten them. They're not particularly flavorful. So it's not commercially viable at this point.
Which is why they're still
yeah, I mean,
incredibly
it's
expensive
yeah,
to buy.
I mean, it's kind of cool if it's December and you can find fresh morels
Sure.
from Tibet. I mean, that's,
From Tibet
yeah,
morels.
we brought some in and people loved them and they weren't terrible, but they're not fresh Minnesota wild morels.
Sure.
Yeah.
That made me think of something. Now I forgot it. Dang it! I need some lion's mane.
Right.
Like an IV of it. I do like those. When I find one of those out in the woods, I'm pretty damn happy when I find a lion's mane.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them.
No,
out
there's not,
Yeah.
and it's. I'm not
It's a
happy
treat.
about that. It is. I look for them very intently when I'm out in the woods.
there.
And
Yeah,
boy, I get excited when I find one.
I don't blame you.
But I need to. I should start to. If somebody. So if you wanted to grow one, what would you recommend? If it's just somebody in their house, like you're not gonna. You're not gonna put up a bunch of plexiglass and get a humidifiers.
I would not recommend that you. Well, I mean, you're free to try, but
Sure.
In particular, you would never achieve the CO2 levels in your house that you would need. You need ambient outdoor levels of CO2 very low.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, there's, when I first started cultivating, trying to determine that mixture of CO2 and temperature and 90% humidity, 24/7,
So you
365.
pretty much do need a humidor.
I mean,
control
you know,
environment,
it's
an aquarium.
Yeah, I had to become like an HVAC expert to
Sure.
figure all that stuff out. So yeah, it's not.
Because you can buy the kits. I mean, they have.
Yeah,
the
we
kits.
sell the kits, and
Yeah.
certain mushrooms do much better though. We can sell you an oyster mushroom kit that'll fruit in your kitchen. We even do sell lion's mane logs on occasion, because you can bring them outside and they'll be in
just
a
let
decent environment.
nature do
yeah,
its thing
right,
for you.
Right.
That's probably a good way to do it. You know where they're at.
Right.
You don't have to go hunt for them. Like
And
I
they'll
put
be there
this
for
log
a few
right
years.
here.
Right. Yeah.
Are they, well, I don't know if perennial is the right word, but will they fruit?
Yeah. So once
For
it
a couple years?
colonizes that log, it's going to continue to fruit, every year until it's consumed all of the lignin and cellulose of the log.
Huh.
Yeah. A good way to think about it is mushrooms live in their food.
Now that
So
I
once
might
they've
have.
eaten
Now that is something I could bring myself to do.
Yeah.
I got plenty of. And they like filtered sun, or does that matter? Or
Yeah, they don't like direct sun. They need some light, but definitely you wouldn't want it in any direct sunlight. Indirect light, like enough light to read by, is sufficient.
Okay, that's a good tip. I'm gonna have to look into that. That would be a good way to do it. Get a couple logs going out there.
Yeah.
They like maple, right?
No, maple's not a good
Really?
not a good
I've
choice.
found
for-
them on maples in the wild.
For almost any mushroom, it's not a good
It
choice.
seems that be that way, but I
They have
have
that-
found
what-
them on maples.
I'm guessing that you might be mistaken, because maples have a lot of natural fungicides. And it's if you ever stumble upon a big maple forest, if you're me, you're like,
Yeah,
there's
no,
not gonna
that's
be
usually what
anything.
happens until yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's always exceptions to every
Sure.
rule.
Oh,
but,
maybe I don't find them very often because I'm not looking in the right spot. But no, I'm actually 100% positive I've found them on maples before.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You found the exception.
Look at me go. I'd rather win the lottery.
Yeah,
Can I be lucky that way? Yeah, no, it's they do. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'll have to pay more attention, but I know I've found at least one on a maple
Yeah,
for sure.
like you say, it happens, but it would be unusual.
It's kind of like morels, use the elms as kind of your rule of thumb, and then they'll kind of do their own thing. I mean, I've found them just walking down a path out of wood chips, or they can.
I actually found a
be
morel
anywhere.
growing out of the side of an oak tree once. I have a photo of it.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
It still blows my
There's
mind.
a photo going around right now. Somebody found there's a few little morels popping out of like a jawbone of a deer, of a rotting jawbone of a deer. Like,
I have not seen that one.
Yeah,
No.
how has that missed you?
Yeah.
I'll try to find it and tag you in it.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. I saw some. No, this is neither here nor there, but turkey hunting the other day, and there was some not birch bolete, but they grow big shelf mushroom, dead birch trees, birch
chaga?
polypore.
Oh, okay.
Not chaga,
Yeah.
birch polypore. And so there's already some mushrooms on it, and then like something must have fell on the tree, didn't quite kill it, so it was like growing horizontally, and so the original shelf mushrooms were now vertical, and then the new ones were sprouting off of that horizontally.
wow,
I was
cool.
like, I don't think I've ever quite seen that. I should go back and take a picture of it. It was pretty neat
Yeah.
looking. The tree is now dead, but they're kind of
They did their job.
they're the beginning of the end for birch trees when
Yeah.
you start seeing those too, as chaga is, it seems.
Yeah, chaga is going to take a compromised tree. Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of how I don't know if it gets into a crack or
typically,
how,
yeah.
but how that goes. But that's a fun thing to do in the winter when
Yep.
you're getting a little stir crazy and tired of ice fishing. So, you got another meeting here, and we can wrap this thing up.
Sadly, I wasn't even kidding when I said it's my downtown office.
Yeah, I guess he's got. So, well, all right, let's do it quickly here. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find us at the Keg and Case Market on West 7th Street in St. Paul at Forest to Fork. Or they can find us at forest-fork.com. They can find us at the Minnesota Mushroom Forum. They can find us at Gentleman Forager, both of those on Facebook. You can find us.
Yeah,
if you
and
just
they do
look for
and they do
mushrooms.
real quickly. You guys do a bunch of like get-togethers, like the
Yeah.
Hootenanny, which is just a fun thing
Yep.
to say. and a couple other things.
We have a plethora coming up. We have Morel Feast, which is at the Hook and Ladder May 10th, where there's a big group of chefs cooking up some Morel goodies and a couple of great bands playing.
Yeah.
But we have a big event coming up called the Wild Food Fandango, which is at Keg and Case on Sunday, June 9th. And we have crepes. We have Kind Country, The Big Woo, Black River Review, The May North, Joseph Hubner. We got great bands coming to play.
Nice. I need
15
to
chefs.
get signed up for one of your certification classes. Not that I need. I know what they look like, but it's just something to have. Looks good on a resume.
Yeah, absolutely. Education's good, right?
Have that little certified mushroomer, or I don't know what it would be called, but mycophile or something. I guess I don't know what it would be, but I've just been meaning to do it, and it'd just be kind of fun to learn some new people.
Well, we got one coming up.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you doing this. It was
fun.
Short and sweet. We'll have to maybe we can do it again if we can find a bigger block of time.
Absolutely.
We haven't even scratched the surface of.
We could go on for days.
It's easy to do. Pretty much any subject on this podcast I talk about, this is what happens. But I'll cut you loose.
Hopefully next time it'll be sunnier and warmer.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. We'll do that. Or maybe I can just go one of the hootenannies and we'll
absolutely.
just
that'd be
do
fun
it there.
Too. Sure.
All right, we'll do that. Talk to you.
Sounds good.